Very controversial opinion, apparently. I don't think so, but I think the Osbourne kids should have been taken into care. And I think that if you or me or normal families who weren't sheltered from privilege and wealth, your kids would have been, if you'd have acted and behaved like they did, your kids would have been taken off you. In my view, no question. And the reason I even talking about this, I keep hearing her. She keeps popping up, Sharon Osbourne. And I heard her bleating on about Kneecap, and then I heard her going on about their obsession with Youngblood, and then obviously Ozzy Osbourne died in the funeral, and Jack was in the jungle. They keep coming up on different feeds or whatever in one capacity or another. And back in the 90s or the 2000s or whenever it was, I loved the Osbournes. Like, that was groundbreaking telly, unreal, genre defining. I was a fan, I was hooked. But becoming a father, getting older, and having adopted 2 children, and understanding the process of adoption, psychological safety, the mechanics of trauma, it's absolutely inevitable, or it was absolutely inevitable, in my view, that the Osbourne kids would have had substance issues, misuse issues, rehab, disorders, and watch their trauma present itself as they went into adulthood under the media spotlight. The children here, all of those children are absolutely like victims of an environment that they should not have been in. They were exposed to harm. You can't argue that they weren't exposed to harm. And so we as a society take a woman who exposes her children to harm and we give her jobs on the telly. And then and jobs where some of them, The View or whatever, social commentary or X Factor, made poor decisions for herself and absolutely poor decisions for her children. I said to AI, I was like, listen, because I haven't got enough on today, do you know what I mean? I'm under pressure to do so many things, one of which is speak to social work team about setting up contact for one of our children with their birth family, right? Complicated, messy, needs lots of planning, right? I'm right in the middle of all of these factors that are impacting kids and keeping them safe, you know, what shows up in early years and how that's going to play through. But of course I'm making a video about the Osbournes instead. I said to AI, right, produce a report in exactly the same style as your family or my family or any local authority would do an assessment on the risk to those children. And here's what it says. The double standard. In any local authority in England, if a social worker conducted a home visit and found the following, a Section 47 investigation would be initiated immediately. A father with decades-long polysubstance addiction involving heroin, cocaine, prescription drugs and alcohol. A documented attempted murder of the mother in the family home while the children were sleeping. A mother who dropped attempted murder charges and returned to the relationship. Multiple arrests for public intoxication and criminal behaviour. A father who had killed 17 animals in a drug-fueled rampage inside the family home. Children who were drinking and using drugs by 13 with one attempting suicide at 17. A pattern of serial infidelity, family instability and repeated rehab failures. A mother with full knowledge of all risk factors who chose to have children in this environment. Right? If that was the assessment that a social worker did in your house or my house, those children would be absolutely taken to safety. The children's outcome, addiction, suicide attempts, psychiatric hospitalizations and lifelong mental health struggles are not unfortunate coincidences, they are entirely predictable. Sharon Osbourne began working with Ozzy Osbourne in 1979, started a relationship with him and married him in 82, and she chose to have children, to stay with him. That speaks to her own trauma, and have children with her. And my interest is the children, right? This was not a situation where problems emerged unexpectedly after children. The risk factors were documented, they were public, and they were escalating. Sharon made an active, informed choice to bring children into an environment that any local authority would have flagged as posing significant risk of harm to children. Anyway, UK safeguarding thresholds, right? There is reasonable cause to suspect that a child is suffering or is likely to suffer significant harm. prescription to heroin because it was cheaper, 7 rehab stays, 2 psychiatric hospitalizations, deliberately threw herself down the stairs to get prescriptions, described wishing she wouldn't wake up while taking pills, relapsed in 2021 after 4 years of sobriety, described growing up with alcohol as omnipresent. I came from an alcoholic family. Jack, drunk at 13, regular drinker and cannabis by 14, addicted to Oxycontin by 17, snorting 300 to 400 mg a day with a bottle of bourbon, attempted suicide by pill overdose and self-harm with glass shards, admitted to child psychiatric ward in 03, diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia as a kid, additional vulnerabilities that went unaddressed in the family chaos. He's been sober since 2003, 22 years, wow. But this was despite the environment, not because of it. Ozzy admitted that he couldn't even remember when his children were born, described himself as an extra delinquent child rather than their father. Parental incapacity through substance abuse. Ozzy was frequently absent, intoxicated, or in rehab. Sharon was simultaneously managing his career, his addiction, and raising the children. A parentification dynamic where children's needs were secondary to managing the addicted parent. Under the alcohol harm reduction strategy, parental substance misuse is recognised as a risk factor. Ozzy's addiction was continuous, it was severe, and it involved every class of drug. Sharon's knowledge of risk was total. She chose to remain in the relationship, to continue having children, and to manage Ozzy's career, which actively required his wild man persona. After the attempted murder, she dropped the charges rather than removing the children from risk. So she didn't remove the kids, she dropped the charges against him for strangling her nearly to death on an attempted murder charge while their kids slept in the next room. If you think for a second your kids wouldn't be taken to safety, there's something wrong with you. But yet, we're listening to this woman giving it large about everything from geopolitics to young blood, which is another creepy scenario. What are we doing that for? What is wrong with us? This is not cool.